last year. Shooting my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing.
It's bacon and basketball time all across the Old North State here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Our look inside the women's field of 68 brought to you by our foundational partner, the North Carolina Port Council. I'm Mike Waddell, joined by Chris Edwards. You remember him from the Old North State tailgate back in the fall. And Debbie Taylor, former women's basketball head coach, legendary throughout the CAA, is with us as well. They make up the Duke women's basketball broadcast team, and they are our ACC women's basketball experts. And when you look at this 2023-24 campaign, Debbie, Chris, another big year for the ACC with 8 teams going to the NCAA tournament. That really is a sign of strength for the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah, I think so, Mike, and I'm kind of surprised the ACC didn't get 9 teams in. I thought Miami was a team that probably should have been in. Katie Meyer does a great job as their head coach, a 2-time Duke alum. I think Columbia probably jumped Miami by winning so many games this year. But, yeah, 8 teams, I think that ties a conference record, and I think a lot of ACC teams, Debbie, could make a deep run in March.
I do. I mean, there's just great coaches in the ACC and great players just continue to emerge. And it's been a year where on any given night, anybody can beat anybody. So there's been some really fun battles that we've got to watch and games we've gotten to call. So I'm excited to see what some of these ACC teams can do in the tournament.
8 teams from the ACC again going to the NCAA field of 68. NC State, Notre Dame, and Virginia Tech all hosting matchups in the first and second round, while Duke, Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina, and Syracuse go on the road. But, folks, I got to tell you, I'm a women's basketball fan. I follow the ACC. I remember when Ralph Kitley was the player at Wake Forest, and now he is the father of Liz Kitley. And the number one question on my mind right now, not to jump ahead to the program here, but is Liz Kitley going to get a chance to play again for the Hokies and Kenny Brooks?
You know, I think we all want to sit here and say, God, we hope so, because what a tremendous job Kenny Brooks has done at Virginia Tech and just turned that program around. They've sold out games. When you watch those games on TV, that attendance, that atmosphere for women's basketball, and a big part of that is Liz Kitley and her family and Georgia Amor. And it was just so sad to see her go down at the end of the season with that injury. So if I'm a betting woman, which I am, I would probably say no, but I'm hopeful.
I would agree with
that. Legal in the state of North Carolina. Debbie, you coached against Kenny Brooks when you were at William and Mary, and he was the head coach at James Madison. How have you seen he and his style really grow through his years on the bench?
You know, what he's always been great at is developing talent. You know, he would take a good solid recruit and just you'd watch them grow over their 4 years under his tutelage, and he continues to do that at Tech at a higher level. He brings in good players and he develops them individually, and then he creates this amazing team, and his kids always rebound the heck out of the ball. I mean, but could you teach my kids how to do that, Kenny? But he's just the nicest guy, and he is the consummate players coach. His players know how much he deeply cares about them, and you can really see that when you watch the broadcasts.
When you look at the 2023-24 season in the ACC, though, it really was the season for Notre Dame. I mean, really out of nowhere. Virginia Tech, they lose Kitley, and then Westmore and the Wolfpack of North Carolina State come up short in Greensboro. Coach Ivey and Notre Dame, for the first time in 5 years, they're atop the Atlantic Coast Conference. What kind of a run do you expect from the ACC champion Fighting Irish when they roll into this field of 68?
I'm going to tell you something. I think Notre Dame is going to be a team that's going to be in a regional final, in a Final Four. The job that Coach Ivey has done this year for the Irish, to me, is really impressive. It's considering what she lost. Did not have Olivia Miles at all this year, one of the best players in the ACC. Sonia Citron is hurt. She misses, almost a month for Notre Dame. There was a time the Irish had 6, 7 scholarship players, and they're winning games. I mean, sure, they took their bumps, but who didn't take their bumps in the ACC this year? The way the Irish are able to play defense, and my gosh, we haven't even talked about Hannah Hidalgo, the ACC Freshman of the Year, in the running for the Player of the Year. She is so good on both ends of the floor. I think Notre Dame could give South Carolina a run for their money, and I've actually got the Irish beating the Gamecocks to get to a Final Four.
Wow, that's a gambling man right there.
There
I
you
like
go.
that, Chris. I agree with Chris, though. I mean, Neil, it's funny because, Coach McGraw is on the table and she comments after every game. And I think early in the season, she was giving Coach Ivey a little bit of a hard time. But it's been fun, throughout the injuries, they've just stuck with it and they've just continued to get better and better and better. And it was so exciting to see them win the ACC tournament. They're a force to be reckoned with.
An 8-game winning streak right now for the Irish. They'll face 15th seeded Kent State in a first round matchup. Now, the runner-up in the ACC, the North Carolina State Wolfpack, one of, if not the preeminent program over the history of women's basketball in the state of North Carolina, from the AIAW days all the way to present time. KEL right now to Westmore, and this team is 27-6. They have had some really big highs. They have had some tough lows. How does Coach Moore try to get this team, Debbie, to play more consistent basketball, which we all know is one of the prerequisites for success in the month of March?
Well, they are no stranger to success in March. And Coach Moore is the one coach I would never want to play against. I mean, he is just a basketball genius. And he's so well respected, and everybody knows he's one of the best in the game. And when it comes March time, he ups his game. They have 5 double-digit scorers. They have so many weapons. They have balance. And, they've had their ups and downs. But when that ball goes up for the tournament, they're going to be ready to go.
No, I was just going to agree with Debbie, but I do think they have a really tough draw with Tennessee and Kelly Harper, who used to be the head coach at NC State, coming back to Raleigh. I think that's just an interesting matchup.
And a pretty interesting matchup showing that the women's committee has a sense of humor just like the men's, when Westmore has to go up against Chattanooga, where he was really one of the top coaches in the history of the Southern Conference. I tried to lure him away from Chattanooga to come be the head coach in Cincinnati. He said, no, I don't want to leave Chattanooga. It took going back to Raleigh, where he had sat on KEL's bench, to get him to leave Chattanooga. But Debbie, as a former coach, would it be on your mind a little bit that this is where I used to be, or has he been gone so long, Westmore from Chattanooga, that he's fully red and white NC State and throwing up the hand signal and the whole 9 yards?
Oh, there's no doubt he's Wolfpack through and through. I mean, it's a nice touch. And as you said, the NCAA likes to put these little nuances into the tournament, and then bringing Kelly Harper in the next round. So they always have the story that can be told. But Wes is all about NC State and what he's got to do to get his team back to the Final Four. So I don't think Chattanooga will even be in his mind.
I am a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she does not impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing.
The regular season champion in the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Hokies of Virginia Tech, 24-7, 14-4. They went through the regular season in the ACC. They're a 4 seed out west in Portland, and they'll go up against Marshall, another program that historically has had pretty strong women's basketball. The Hokies' 3rd straight appearance in the NCAA tournament and 13th overall. Without Liz Kitley, if it doesn't look like she's going to play, how long will this trip be for the Hokies here in the NCAA postseason?
I think it's going to be tough. That program is built around Liz Kitley. And I think, Strack, her understudy, has been coming along and she's made great strides this year. But Kitley is, in my opinion, the best post player in the country. And that's hard shoes to fill. Georgia Amor in the Virginia game when Kitley went down had 39 points. Can she do that again and again and again? I think that's tough. They're going to have to shoot well. They have some great shooters. Kayla King's a great shooter. They've got some really good pieces. But losing their star and everything she brings to that team, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, the one thing for Virginia Tech, they've had a couple of weeks to figure out life without Kitley. They know if she's going to play or not. They have an idea. And they've had that whole week off between the conference tournament and when they start playing this week. Debbie talked about how great of a coach Kenny Brooks is. He's going to make those adjustments. But I do think it's going to be hard. I actually think Baylor might get them in the second round.
Debbie, I have to ask you, what's it like to have to wait an entire week to a week and a half to play a game between a conference tournament and going on to the national?
It's a give and take, right? You want to keep going, especially if you have momentum, but then you also have this opportunity based on your draw and your opponents to put in a few different things, some new inbounds plays, a couple of like nuances into the things you run because you've seen each other play, over and over. So it gives you some time to make some adjustments and throw some new things into the mix, but it's also you're sitting around waiting and it's like, come on, let's just go.
Syracuse 23-7 through the regular season. They're the number 6 seed, and they're going to be going to the place where tiers were invented in women's basketball, Storrs, Connecticut, for a first-round game against the winner of Auburn and Arizona. The Orange returning to the NCAA for the first time since 2021, and that's after they made a really nice run of 8 consecutive trips to the postseason. Syracuse, what about this? Could they maybe get on a roll here and give UConn some trouble down the road?
Yes, I think so. I was so impressed and have been so impressed with the job that Felicia Leggett-Jack has done at Syracuse, her alma mater. And that was a really tough situation that she walked into a couple years ago. They had a Final Four run, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, ended up letting that head coach go, took a couple steps back. And the job that she's done to build that program, playing that matchup zone that we see a lot of teams play, Debbie. Deasia Fair, one of the best scorers in the ACC. They've got Woodley, who's been such a good role player for them too. I think Syracuse can get past UConn. This is a UConn team that's banged up. I think I saw it the other day, 7, 8 healthy players for UConn going into the NCAA tournament. I think the depth and the zone is really going to give UConn some trouble in the second round.
I agree with Chris, and UConn, it's been amazing to see what they've been able to accomplish with all the injuries they have. But it's nice to see Paige Becker's back and playing well and contributing. But Coach Jack, just like Joanne McCauley had at Duke, they play that matchup zone. And if you're not used to it, it can cause some problems. Now Gino's, of course, a master, I guess, zones. But this is going to be an interesting, but hats off to Coach Jack and the job she really has done this season and a very much deserved ACC Coach of the Year.
For the 26th time, the Louisville women's basketball team will be on to the field of 68 and their 13th consecutive trip. The Cards 24-9, a lot better than their male counterparts there in Louisville, earning the number 6 seed and will face number 11 seed Middle Tennessee in the first round. Again, in another place where a lot of people leave unhappy, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. What do you think about Louisville and head coach Jeff Wall and what they can put together here as we get into March and perhaps even to April?
They for me have been one of the most interesting teams this year because they have been so extremely hot and cold. You've seen moments of brilliance like you're used to from them, and then you've seen them just sometimes look like they just don't care, which you don't see from a Jeff Wall's coach team, and you can see his frustration. But in a way similar to Wes, I feel like Jeff is a really great coach, and he'll have his team ready to play at March. And I think they've got to come out with a lot more passion. They're so capable. It'll be interesting, again, another NCAA thing, match Haley Van Lith up against her former teammates, if the LSU and Louisville go head-to-head.
If I'm Louisville, though, I'm not looking past Middle Tennessee State. They're a team that we saw in Durham last year in the first and second rounds, and I was really impressed with that club. And to get back for a second year, Middle Tennessee State could give them a game in the first round.
When you talk about Duke, you talk about a team also that has had some real high points here in the 2023-24 season. Another 20-win campaign for Coach Carol Lawson, 20-11. They're the number 7 seed against 10th seed Richmond. Now, Debbie, you know Commonwealth basketball. You know about the Richmond Spiders. This is not an easy draw for the Blue Devils.
No, not at all. And the job Aaron Russell and his staff have done at Richmond is really incredible, and so nice to see them win the Atlantic 10. They've had a stellar season. Now they opened with Duke, and we knew with that game, we said they're going to have to make threes, and they didn't. And Duke has 4 players that have made over 50 threes, 2 that have made over 60, Richmond. So they have a great shooting team. They play that Princeton-like 5-out offense. They move, they share the ball incredibly well. If they are hitting outside shots, they're a very tough team to beat. So don't be fooled by the 30-point differential the first time these teams met. Richmond is a contender.
Yeah, they're really good. And these two teams are certainly different than when they played on opening day. Duke a little bit different too. I mean, listen, you get nervous for every game you play, right? That's part of doing this. I am really concerned with Richmond, but I think if Duke can get past Richmond, we talk about the committee doing fun things. Duke a rematch with Celeste Taylor, who was one of the best defenders in the ACC at Duke last year against Ohio State in the second round. It's going to be a lot of fun up in Columbus later this week.
Whether you are moving locally, nationally, or even internationally, and whether you're a residential or commercial customer, please consider our friends at XL Moving and Storage, an award-winning Allied Van Lines agent with offices in Greensboro and Raleigh. Thanks to their 25 years of experience helping North Carolinians all across the state with their moving and storage needs, XL has become the trusted hometown North Carolina moving services company. Our good friends Jim Dorsett and Jody Hatley, along with their hardworking staff, offer customized, tailored relocation and storage solutions to the people of North Carolina and beyond. Visit them online today at xlms.com. That's EXCELMS.com. One of my favorite restaurants in Raleigh for many years now has been The Oak Scratch Kitchen and Bourbon Bar. It's located on Lake Boone Trail, which is a perfect location for a great meal and beverage if you're on your way to nearby Carter Finley Stadium or perhaps PNC Arena for a concert, Wolfpack or Hurricanes game, or other event. The menu is incredibly tasty and creative. The atmosphere is a lot of fun. The bourbon options are as high-end and varied as you'll find anywhere. The staff is super classy and first-rate. And I've just always loved the people, the food, and the overall vibe there. When I took Carolina Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon to lunch, yes, meaning the billionaire who owns the hockey team, I took him to The Oak. Seriously, it's that good. Learn more or make a reservation by visiting their website, theoakraleigh.com. That's theoakraleigh.com.
After advancing to the semifinals of the Ally ACC Women's Basketball Tournament in Greensboro as a 6th seed, Florida State, rolling up from Tallahassee, will make its 11th straight appearance in the NCAA tournament and their 22nd overall as they go up in Austin against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama, historically coming out of the very rough and tumble SEC, seems like this could be a pretty difficult draw for the Seminoles.
I think so. Florida State, to me, is kind of like Louisville, Debbie. They're so Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get from Brooke Wyckoff's team. They can score in bunches, but sometimes they don't play defense. They've got Tanaya Latson, who's a phenomenal player. But, I mean, when we saw them in Durham, they lost by 40 points. They lost 3 straight. They lost in overtime at home to Virginia. I don't know what to make of this team that Brooke Wyckoff has this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they got beat by Alabama, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they beat Alabama by double digits.
I totally agree with Chris. I mean, you just do not know. They're a mixed bag. You don't know what they're going to get. If they can find their passion, if they can fine tune a few things, they're really dangerous. But they're a question mark. They've just been so hot and cold all season long.
North Carolina, the 8th and final ACC team to advance to the NCAA tournament. The Tar Heels, 1 game shy of 20 this year, 19-12. But Debbie, as you said, Coach Courtney Banghart has had to deal with a lot of injuries to, I think, multiple state high school players of the year that were supposed to be freshmen this year for the Tar Heels and provide that depth. They never showed up on campus. Who did show up on campus was Deja Kelly, the first of 3 all ACC level performers for the Tar Heels. But again, that group has been Jekyll and Hyde. They play really well against Duke and NC State, and they play really challenged basketball like some of their games, including the one against Boston College, where the Eagles had lost 10 straight games, but Carolina unable to go up there and complete what would have been a pretty epic comeback. What do you expect from the Tar Heels as they roll into another very tough place to play?
Yeah, I think with Deja Kelly and Alyssa Usby, you've got 2 players who have done this before. They've been there. They know what it takes to win the first game. They're going to come and they're going to play and they're going to carry their team like they've been doing all season. You know, I think it has been tough with the injuries, and hats off to the UNC staff for the holes they've had to plug and the magics, the rabbits they pulled out of the hats. But my bet's with Deja Kelly and Alyssa Usby. I think they're 2 of the best players in the game. They're so much fun to watch, and they will carry their team past this first game.
I do agree with that, but I think one thing to watch too is this is the first game that's going to be played in the tournament that day. It's an 11:30 a.m. tip-off in Columbia in a neutral site. Who comes up ready to play? Who gets out to the early start? I think the start in that game is important. I don't have a lot of faith though in the Big Ten this year. I watched some Big Ten basketball. I don't have a lot of faith in many teams from the Big Ten unless you're Iowa and Caitlin Clark.
Let's talk about long-term now. We've gone through all of the 8 teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference who have made the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Who is the one team and the one player? We'll give you a team and a player that you expect big things out of. First, we'll start with you, Coach Debbie Taylor.
My team is Princeton. Carla Berube, you know, she left tough. She took over Princeton when Courtney Banghart left, and they just year after year win the Ivies and go into the NCAA tournament again, and they always make it past the first round. I just think they have a really seasoned team. They're really talented. They've been there. They slow the game down. They hold teams to 56 points a game, and their style is unique, and I just think they've got a great first round matchup. I look for them to win 1, 2, and maybe even get to the third round of this. They're impressive.
My team is Florida Gulf Coast. Talk about an interesting style. I think the Eagles, if they can hit some threes, they're going to take a bunch of threes. I mean, they lead the nation in like threes attempted for, I think, the last decade plus. And if they can make some threes, I think FGCU can win a couple of games. I like that team. We saw them earlier this year in Durham. We've seen them in the last 2 or 3 years. The job that Carlos Mesco does with that program is phenomenal. They win the ASUN, I think, every single year. I think FGCU could beat Oklahoma in their first game.
A lot of college basketball fans watching this show may not know names other than Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, the stars from LSU and Iowa. Of course, they made a lot of headlines last year throughout the year here in 2023-24. Is there just maybe some hesitation in a lot of people's minds that we would see both Iowa and, of course, LSU contending again for a national championship, LSU trying to repeat?
I think there's so many players. There's a lot of parity this year, and I don't know how you feel, Debbie, but I think there are so many terrific players in the NCAA this year. I would be surprised to see it be the same old guard in the Final Four this year.
Yeah. I'm a Stanford fan. I think they have a great, Tara obviously is one of the best in the game, and she hit a historic milestone this year. But I mean, Cameron Brink is a lot of fun to watch. You know, she's the goddaughter of Steph Curry. She's a guard in a post body. She's so athletic and talented. They play such great team basketball. So I think they're gonna bring a lot to this tournament as well.
It's always fun to watch as the teams work their way through the field of 68 from round to round. Any stories, Deb, of coaching in tournaments past and trying to keep everybody on the same page while all heck is breaking out around you?
You know, I think the teams that have strong locker rooms, you know, the coaches do their jobs, but they can only do so much. And you have to have leadership in your squad that takes control of that locker room and leads your team from step to step. And you get to really see that on the court visually with some of the teams who have great leadership. You see them in the huddles. You see them speaking. You see them gathering their teams in huddles on the court when they're needing and pulling people together and talking to them. It's that player leadership that's the X factor between winning the next game or not.
The Atlantic Coast Conference owns the most NCAA tournament wins, 119 of any conference since 2014. 8 teams going on to this year's national tournament. We'll follow it right here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Thank you, Coach Debbie Taylor. The voice of the Blue Devils, Chris Edwards. I'm Mike Waddell signing off. This has been Bacon and Basketball presented by the North Carolina Port Council.